Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen and I talk about all things houseplant related. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can check out all of the latest content. So firstly, I just wanted to say that I am moving my video releases out to Friday evening at 5 PM UK time. So all of my videos will now be uploaded on a Friday evening, obviously after this video here. Getting into the video. So today's video, I thought it'd be a really good idea to go through the very first plants that I ever owned and talk to you about how they're doing, what I've learned about these plants, and go through that really. So on the list today we've got 5 plants. They are common house plants. I know that a lot of houseplant content these days seems to be based around rare house plants, and I just wanted to do something for those people that haven't quite got to that rare plant part yet. I'm aware that there are still probably a lot of people that are coming on here that are new to houseplants, and I thought this would be a really good way of showing you how plants can thrive really and what plants are really easy. So the 5 plants that are on this list today are the first 5 plants that I ever owned, and I still have all of them. They're all still alive and they're all absolutely thriving. So I'm really excited to get into this video and show you them all. So the very first plant on my list today is the beautiful Monstera deliciosa. Now this is one of the very first plants that I bought. It's not the first plant that I had, but it's one of the first 5 plants that I had, I guess I should say. As you can see, it's got quite big. It's in a basket here, so that's obviously the bottom of it there. And yeah, it's definitely got very big. So I've had this for probably about, I want to say about a year and a half now. So I haven't had plants for a really long time. My oldest plant that I've had is probably about 2 and a bit years old. So I've had this for just over a year and a half, and it's getting quite big and it's really thriving. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of growth off of it. It's just really genuinely doing quite well. So let me just come back out. So that's the sort of size it was when I first got it a year and a half ago, and now it is at this size here. So if you want a plant that's going to grow quickly and that's going to thrive really easy, don't need loads of watering or loads of care, this is a really good plant to start you off on your journey. I have got this on a moss pole because they can go quite wild, and if I really let this go and took it off the pole, it would probably be like out at the sides here, like it really would be huge. So the moss pole just keeps it all neat and tidy really, keeps it all tucked up. I do have this new leaf at the back here. I don't know how well you can see that one. So yeah, that one there is a brand new leaf. And I also have this one here, which is a brand new leaf as well. Now, unfortunately, this one at the front here has got a little bit smaller than the other ones. However, the one at the back is staying quite large. And the reason for that is that I actually moved it into a slightly darker position for a little while, and then noticed that the new growth that was coming through wasn't as big as before. So I have actually moved it back into a higher light position. Now, as much as this currently sits quite far back from my window, I do actually, if I just turn the camera around slightly there, I do actually have a grow light here, which is normally on, and it sits next to that basically. So it does get the light from that grow light throughout the day. Now, it's only been in this position for about a week or 2 now, so I'm hoping that grow light's just going to really give it an extra push. However, obviously I don't really need to worry too much about it really getting big because it's quite big on its own already. In terms of watering, I tend to wait until at least the top 2 layers of this are dry, then I will water it. A really good telltale sign, as you can see now, is when the leaves start to droop. So you see how this leaf here is completely drooped over, as well as this one at the front, but the ones at the bottom, look, are still nice and stiff and fine. So that's the sign that it is starting to lose water because the top ones are starting to droop. I have done a whole video on this plant talking about exactly what I do on going through, but just another tip on this one as well, especially in the summer months, I tend to fertilise this plant every month. So I probably water it. I probably actually only water this once a month at the moment because it's in a really large pot down here. So the pot at the bottom is really big, so I don't need to water it a lot because obviously it holds onto a lot of moisture. However, I do have a really nice barky mix in there as well, so it is important to make sure that you get the right kind of soil. So a nice barky, thick, chunky mix that really drains out the water is really good. Because these things really do hold on. So the thicker the leaves are, the more they're going to suck up that water and hold the water in their leaves. So that then is the Monstera deliciosa. So I'm not going to go into too much more, but like I said, I have got a whole video about that one and the care tips for it. So yeah, this was one of the first plants I had. So let's pop that one back. So this is plant number 2 on my list today, and this is the Draciana marginata, or the dragon tree plant. This is actually the very first plant I ever owned. So this is the plant that got me into houseplants in the first place. I lived in a 1-bedroom flat for a little while, and this was basically the biggest plant that I could have without it taking up too much space, because the great thing about these is that they grow up and they don't go too wide, which is really great, and they can literally live anywhere in the house as long as it's not a room with no windows at all. But yeah, so I find that this is the easiest plant ever. I mean, it's currently sat here, which isn't in the lightest of situations, and that has actually forced it to push out some new growth, which is just nuts. So as you can see, all the fresh growth at the top here is nice and new. It did live in the back corner of the kitchen for a little while, but it was just a little bit too dark for it there. I started to get a tiny bit of yellowing on the leaf here. However, that took like probably about 6 months for it to get that yellowing on that leaf. So it did take ages, and they can pretty much live in any sort of light situation. There is no specific situation with this. However, I would not shove it in a really bright window. It doesn't do well with really bright direct light. But other than that, you can pretty much pick any position in the house. So it's really good for one if you want a nice dark corner and you want to add some greenery to it or something like that. Care tips wise, once again, I would wait for the soil to really dry out before you water this. Dracianas really do like to dry out in between watering, so make sure that this is completely dry. You know, at least the top 2 inches. If you have any doubts that it's a little bit too wet still, just don't do it. Once again, underwatering is always the best way with most plants, unless it's a fern. Don't take that advice for ferns. But other than that, you're pretty good on underwatering. So yeah, this guy, you can also, if there are any leaves that really droop down and really look bad, this hasn't got too many to be honest, you can actually just take them off and you won't notice them missing really. There's one, yeah, they're all quite good, but it does start to droop down a bit. So if you find that actually you don't like the leaves at the bottom really drooping and looking sad, you can just take a couple of the bottom ones off and you won't really notice it. It will just grow more out the top and it will just get taller instead. So that is quite good. This is obviously currently sat in a plastic pot inside this lovely basket here, which looks really nice. And I probably fertilise this once every 2 months, so I don't give it a lot of fertilisation. I do, yeah, I tend to just do that every 2 months, and it probably gets watered every month maximum. So once again, that does just depend on the soil that you have it in, and obviously if you're keeping a plant in something like terracotta, then it is going to absorb, it's going to get rid of that water a lot quicker than if it's in a plastic pot or something like that. So there are obviously many variables to this, but yeah, once again, one of the easiest plants I have ever owned. I've never had any issues with it, and I can pretty much keep it anywhere. So that is the Draciana marginata. Number 3 on the list today is the golden pothos. Now, this, once again, is one of the first plants that I bought, as you know from the title of the video. I currently have, I reckon, about 4 of these. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I currently have 4 of these plants, and it's purely because they are just so easy and they grow so quickly and they are so easy to propagate. Now, this one here that I've got in my hand currently lives in my bathroom. I've only had it a couple of weeks, maybe a month or 2 maximum, and it has already doubled in size. So if you put it in the right situations, it really does thrive. I find that with this one being in my bathroom, I barely have to water it because it soaks up all the moisture from the showers and baths and things like that. So that is really good. And as you can see, it's got really nice healthy sized leaves, even as a hanging plant, which is great. So yeah, super, super happy with that one. I mean, that there, no, this one here is the newest leaf that has pushed out, and it is huge. It's basically the size of my hand. So yeah, really, really happy, healthy plant. Once again, these can live in quite dark situations. They don't need a lot of light. As you can see here, it gets a little bit of light through the windows of my front door, and it gets a slight bit of side light from my window, which is just sat over there, but it's not a really high light position. And this is the oldest one that I have, so this is the one that I've had for quite a while. I've propagated this back a couple of times, but yeah, as you can see, I've sort of made a bit of a feature of it here. Once again, it really does droop down if it needs watering. You will see all the leaves sort of drop. And that happens on all of my pothos around the house, so I do just tend to wait for that to start happening, and then the first sign of a drooped leaf, I will go ahead and give it a really good water. And that's probably once a month. In terms of, yeah, light with this, like I said, it really doesn't need a lot of bright light. So if you've got a nice corner of your room that you want to shove it in, or up on top of a unit somewhere, yeah, just a really good, really easy plant, and they're absolutely beautiful. I mean, they've got variegation on them, so anyone that likes a little bit of a variegated plant, yes, fair enough, they're not as great as like the white and green variegation and that really great mixture, but they are still absolutely beautiful, and the more light you give them, the more variegation you will get. So if I just do a close-up with this one, then you can see what some of these leaves look like. And yeah, they're absolutely stunning. I mean, you can get, have I got any? No, these are all quite well variegated actually. My one up here has got some darker leaves on it because it's been in a darker light situation. But most of the time, if you keep it in, you know, sort of moderate light, then you will end up with something like this. And they're just lovely. They're shiny, they're beautiful, and yeah, they are probably the most common hanging plant, and I just love them. So hence why I've got 4 of them. But yeah, so that is our third plant on the list today, is the golden pothos. Right then, so plant number 4 is the spider plant. Now, once again, one of the most common plants out there, and it was actually gifted to me by my nan, which I was really excited about. And when I first got into plants, she was really excited because she absolutely loves houseplants. And yeah, so she gave me a couple of plants actually, but this was the first one that she gifted to me. And it wasn't far off of this size, to be honest, when she gave it to me. It was a little bit smaller. But as you can see, it is absolutely huge, and it's also got a load of new growth come through at the top here, so it is currently very happy. It hasn't always been this happy. It has gone through a few ups and downs while I've had it, but I have recently I have sort of in the last year really nailed its care, and as you can see, I kind of know what it needs, but I haven't always been able to give it that, so that's kind of how this one's worked. So yeah, I mean, this is in a huge pot. As you can see, it's in like a 21 centimetre pot, I think. And it very much does lean forward. If I turn it on its back, look, there's nothing around the back here. So it does very much lean forward, and it has got a couple of babies on it at the moment. So there's some there, and there's another few. What's that, 1, 2, another 3 on this one. This first one has 4 on it, I think, there. So yeah, so it grows off its own babies, which is fantastic. It's a really easy plant to propagate because it grows the babies for you, and you just cut them off and pop them in some soil. I'm just going to pop that down because it's very heavy. But yeah, so it's really green and luscious, as you can see. Spider plants do like to be quite moist, so as soon as they start to dry out, I do water it. This is due for a water very soon. But the bigger the pot, the less you need to water it, because it does soak up a lot more moisture into the soil, and that does sort of go a lot further. So do be careful not to overwater it, and don't let it sit in water. However, this is one I'd probably say to water about every 2 weeks. It does also need a higher light situation than a lot of the plants that we've been talking about today. So if it's in too low a light, it just won't grow. It will start to look a lot sadder, and it will start to droop a lot more, and you won't get this luscious new growth at the top here that really stands on end, and you'll find that what will happen is it'll all just droop forward and it won't look very beautiful. So when it looks all lively like this and it's all up at the front, you know, all perky at the top, then it looks much better. So I would definitely recommend keeping it in a slightly higher light position. However, mine actually lives at the back of my bedroom. So I reckon my bedroom is probably about 5-6 meters. So it lives about 5 or 6 meters away from a east facing window, so it gets morning sunlight through that window. However, I do have a grow light at the back end. It's not the same as the grow light that I have down here. If you haven't seen my grow light videos before, I have got videos on here about both of my grow lights, so do go and check those out. But it's a purple grow light and it's got lots of sort of 4 spines that come off, and one of them sits over the top of this plant and 2 others that sit on a 3-tiered plant stand up in my bedroom. So it does get that throughout the day, and since it has, this is where all the new growth has come from here. So that's what I mean by I knew that it needed more light, but I couldn't necessarily put it in a higher light situation. So I put in a grow light instead. So grow lights are a really great way of being able to spread plants throughout your house and still give them the light that they need. So yeah, definitely a really good solution for something like this. It does like that higher light. And also I find that when it starts to get dry and when it needs a good water and a good fertilizer, the leaves start to go quite white. So you see how at the moment it's a really luscious green colour with a nice white in the centre? Well, the green on the outside will start to go quite a pale colour if it needs watering, but also the paler it gets, the more it tells you that it needs something extra. So that's when I fertilise it. So I fertilise this probably once every 2 waters, and it just absolutely loves it. It brings all that bright green back in, so it really sucks up all that nutrients from the fertiliser. And obviously the longer that you have the plant, the soil loses its nutrients, so you need to add the fertiliser in to add nutrients to that plant. So yeah, that is basically the care for this one. So that is my spider plant. I have got a couple of babies around the house with this one, and I have actually also got a curly spider plant, which once again, exactly the same care tips, it's just a curlier version really. But this is the first one that I had, so that's why I wanted to show you this today. And yeah, it's from my nan. And last but not least, we are going to talk about this beautiful Draciana syntho, I think is how you say it. Now, I used to call this a Draciana fragrans, and one of my first ever videos that I put out was actually repotting this plant along with a couple of my other plants. So yeah, I have really had this for quite a long time, and still to this day I am getting beautiful new growth coming through, which you can see just here. If I bring it nice and close, you can see the beautiful new growth coming through there. And there's also, if I move that leaf out of the way, there's also a new growth coming through there as well. So the new growth on these plants grow through the centre of the other leaves. So they come out through here, and then you'll get another one grow in the centre of that as well. They're really beautiful, glossy, smooth leaves, and they're beautiful. They've got these really nice like lime green colour down the centre of the leaf. And the stem is almost like a bamboo-y stem, which is quite cool. So you can see, look, it's quite green and like bamboo-y, which I really like. Yeah, I kind of like that about the Draciana stems, as they always have that kind of look to them. So they feel quite different to a lot of other green plants, which I find quite refreshing. This plant can grow to be really big. I actually got this when it was quite small. So I don't actually know if I have a picture of it when I first got it, but it was really quite small. It was like way down here. So it has grown quite a lot. I don't think I have any pictures of when I first bought this. But yeah, it has grown quite a lot and it really loves it. So I repotted this about 7 months ago when I very first put a video up on YouTube. That was my repotting of this plant. Now, it has grown quite a bit since then, so it really did need a repot. And I reckon in another 6 months or so, it'll probably need repotting again. So I reckon I'll probably be repotting this every year. So I would have almost had it for, yeah, about 1.5 years, just over. So similar time to when I bought my Draciana. not Draciana, similar time to when I bought my Monstera deliciosa as well. So they were very similar timings from my local garden centres. This plant, the same as the other Draciana from this video, very similar care. It doesn't need a really high light situation. However, like I said before, the higher the light, the more it is going to grow. But I would not stick this in a window again because it will go really yellow. You will get yellowing leaves and it will start to die, unfortunately. So it's definitely not a good move with Draciana to put it right in the window. However, it can do with quite bright indirect light all the way down to lower light situations, so it is quite good for that. It currently sits on the back side of my desk and it grows quite nicely there. I probably water it once again about once a month. This in one of my recent vlogs, I can't remember, I think it was the first vlog that I did, my very first vlog, I actually did show this plant when it really needed a good water and it was drooped right over. So it is very dramatic and it will tell you when it needs watering. And then as soon as you give it a good drink, it looks like this. So this has quite recently been watered, and as you can tell, it looks very full and very voluptuous, shall we say. Yeah, it really, really loves a good water. And then I just let it completely dry out again. Mine sits in terracotta, so it does dry out a bit quicker. But yeah, I do water this probably just under once a month, maybe every 3 weeks or so. So if it's in a plastic pot, I'd say probably every month. And then obviously in the sun, in the summertime when there's a lot more sun getting to it, you might need to up that a little bit. It just depends on your situation really, so do just keep an eye on it and really get a feel for how it is. Once that soil dries out, once again, it needs to be at least the top 2 centimetres needs to be dry. So at the moment I can feel that probably about an inch down I can feel quite a lot of moisture, so I just want to make sure that so I wouldn't water that anytime soon. So I'd almost wait till it's pretty dry and then go for it. But I do tend to wait for it to tell me on this plant again. It's a lot easier for plants if you know that they're going to tell you when they're thirsty. It's a lot easier to listen to them rather than just do it anyway, because then it's, you know, it's not worth killing a plant if you don't need to. So do really pay attention to what they ask you for, really. I've never tried to propagate this before, so I'm not really sure on how you would propagate it. But I'd imagine you could probably just cut off one of these stems, either put it in soil or water, and it would grow some nice roots out, is what I believe this works, but I've never tried to do that with this one before. However, with my Monstera deliciosa, that's really easy to propagate. I think I might talk about that in my care tips video for that plant in particular. And the golden pothos, that follows very similar to any sort of philodendron or Monstera that is vining. Or pothos that is vining, they all go under the same one. So I have got some propagation videos and things like that as well. However, if there are any of the plants that I've talked about today that you would like me to do a specific video on, specific care tips for it or any specific propagation for it, then just leave some comments in the comment section down below and I will make sure that I get those videos out to you as quickly as I can. Also, if there are any other plants that you know of in my collection that you want me to do a specific care tip video for, then please do let me know. Like I said, this was mainly just about the fact that these are the 5 plants that I have had the longest, so they are the ones that I really do know very well. They're very common plants, so it's very likely that a lot of you have these in your collection. So I just wanted to really help you all out and make sure that, yeah, I'm talking about plants that you guys know about really and that you can easily get your hands on. So thank you for watching. I really enjoyed sharing my very first plants with you today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!